Perfect. So again, my name is Lydia Thomas. I'm the Diversity Engagement Inclusion Manager in the Office of the Provost here at the University of Pittsburgh. I want to say thank you all for coming to this panel session today. Over the last few years, we've heard feedback from students who want information about housing that they wish they would have knew before they came to the university or even came to the United States. So this panel will focus on the resources that the university offers and tips from some of our panelists for finding housing in the Pittsburgh area. So before we start, I'll give you a brief overview of how the panel will work, and then we'll jump right in. So this panel is featuring four Pitt staff and students who will share some of their insights about housing. I'll give each panelist a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll ask a series of questions to help you better understand the resources and information needed to make informed decisions about housing. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go, but I'll also give a chance for participants to ask questions at the end. So we might ask your question during the panel, or we might wait to the end depending on what your question is. So first, I'll ask our participants to introduce themselves. We'll start with the staff and end with the students. They'll tell us about their positions and the resources that they offer or know about on campus. And we will start with Trisha Margiotti, who is the property manager liaison in the off-campus living office. So Trisha, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trisha Margiotti. My preferred pronouns are she and her, and my position is to help students off campus to make sure they're safe and informed renters, and searching for apartments, signing lease. Unfortunately, we don't find apartments for you, but we give you all the guides to find apartment resources. I have 25 plus years experience with off-campus living at the University of Pittsburgh. We have a great website where you can find roommates, sublets, apartment buildings in the area, any information you need about signing a lease in Pennsylvania. And what's the other question? And I have so much experience at the University of Pittsburgh. I know all about the landlords. I know all the neighborhoods surrounding the University of Pittsburgh. And if you have any questions, you can just reach out to me at any time. That's what I'm here for, is to help our students in the process of finding apartments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trisha. Next, we'll have an introduction from Mike Barker, who is the leasing coordinator in Auxiliary Services Office.
Thank you. Yes, I'm one of the leasing coordinators for the university. I oversee the off-campus apartments that the university owns. We have 5 properties currently that are active, and we'll be adding more. So they are for, different buildings for different students, but we have, buildings for medical students, dental students that are in that area, and then the other properties are for grad students, upper class undergrads, and some staff and faculty. I've been with the university for 7 years, and we do work from the ocl.pitt.edu website. So our contact information is there, and you can look on there at all the university owned apartments. On there, it has, tours of each apartment and all the building facts that you need to know and how to contact us if you're interested in renting them or if you have any questions about them. Thank you.
Sarah, you can go ahead.
Lydia, you're on mute, Lydia.
Sorry, y'all. Next, we'll have Sarah Malone, who's the executive assistant on the GPSG. Go next, and then we'll finish with Raj Shaw, who is a peer mentor in the Graduate Global Ties Mentoring Program.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, like Lydia said, my name is Sarah Malone. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I was the executive administrator for the graduate and professional student government last year. And I also am a recent graduate from the School of Education, higher education master's program. So I do have experience as an out-of-state student. I'm originally from Florida. Just getting housing at Pitt, but also I have worked with other students in helping them and navigating that as well. So glad to be here and share my experience.
Next, we have Raj Shaw.
Yeah, hey everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, in which part of the world. My name is Raj Shah, and I'm the president for the School of Computing and Information's graduate student organization. I am also the assembly board member for the GPSG committee, and I also serve on the Chancellor's Advisory Council to prevent sexual misconduct. And I'm just, I've just finished my program in information science, master's in information science. And I've been here since the past 2 years, helped a lot of students find housing, both at Pitt, CMU, all across. So I have quite a bit of experience on how to exactly go ahead with finding housing in the city of Pittsburgh, which areas are good, which neighborhoods are bad, which you should avoid, and so on. So I think this panel would be very beneficial for you, since we have a lot of people with experience who can help you go ahead with all this process. So happy to be here amongst all of you.
Thank you, Raj. And just a quick shout out to Sarah and Raj, who both just graduated with their master's degrees. So shout out to them. They have a lot of experience helping students on campus. So thank you all for your service. And again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in your chat. And then at the end, we'll answer any questions that you have. So the first question I want to ask to our panelists deals with applying for housing. So this is the question we probably get the most from students. So I'll ask this question really quickly. Can you describe the process of can you describe the application process for renting an apartment? And what are some of the important things that students should consider before signing a lease? So I'll start with Trisha on this one, and then we're going to go to Mike second. Trisha, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Renting an apartment in the Oakland area or the surroundings area, the University of Pittsburgh, all application processes can be different. It's just depending on the landlord. Sometimes when you're filling out an application, it only should be for the application fee, nothing more than that. You never give them a month's rent to hold an apartment or anything like that. It only should be application fee, and that can range anywhere from $25 to $100, but usually it's in the $35 to $45 range. I always suggest when you have an application for renting an apartment where they can prove your credit score, if you're able to pay the rent, it should be at a lower cost. Never give them their first month rent. Landlords in the Oakland area are famous for doing that to students, especially international students. Will, if the student doesn't want the apartment or they don't pass the credit check, they retain that security deposit. Just pay the basic thing and read over your application very carefully. Read the words, just don't sign, just read everything carefully. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, just to talk about I think Trisha covered the off-campus apartments in the area. Just for university-owned apartments, if you rent from the university, we don't have applications or application fees. You don't have to have a co-signer for them. We just confirm you in the University ID Center, and as long as you are affiliated with the university and in good standing without any holds on your accounts, then that is all the information that we need to move forward with sending you a lease. And then you would sign the lease through DocuSign right through your email. And then we just ask for a last month deposit. But just like that instance, you wouldn't want to sign any lease. You wouldn't want to pay any deposits before you have signed your lease, So that's just something to look out for when you're renting from anyone. You want to sign your lease first and then you would pay your deposit.
Trisha, can you mention the off-campus housing page really quickly here? And I'll share the link in the chat.
Yes, our website is ocl.pitt.edu.
Thank you. And a lot of our students have definitely gone to this website recently, and they're updating this more recently as well, just to have a lot of resources listed out for students. So even some of the questions that have been asked in the chat are answered on that page. They have a place where you can find roommates, and you can like list a profile to find a new roommate, and you list like how much you want to spend in rent, and like you make a short profile about yourself. So it's definitely a helpful tool. So I threw the link in the chat, so definitely check that website out. So our next question, I'm going to direct a little bit to our students, because I know some of the students on this panel get a lot of questions about housing or help a lot of students find the resources they need. So what are some of the affordable areas that you've seen students live in? Affordable and safe, what do you think? We'll start with Sarah.
Okay, yeah. So, well, I live in North Oakland, and I think that is it's a pretty affordable area, I would say. For my personal experience, I opted to do a single, like it's just a 1-bedroom apartment, and I currently pay about $900 a month. I know that's not for everyone, but that was just an opportunity that I got, and I found that the Oakland area is a really great area, whether you're in North Oakland or South Oakland, because the bus system is so nice. I'd also say there's other neighborhoods that are a little bit further away from the school, like Shady Side or Friendship, those are other great neighborhoods, but it would just probably be a little bit further of a bus ride. But I will say Pittsburgh's transportation system is great regardless.
Thanks, Sarah. Raj, you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, and I would just echo what Sarah said. And even I stay in North Oakland, coincidentally, just right next door to Sarah. And pretty much I've experienced the same. Both of my years I've stayed in North Oakland, and so like basically I would put it in preference as such that North Oakland, Shady Side, and North and Central Oakland, and then Shady Side, and then Squirrel Hill is what I would put it as preference, because that's based on the location from the university. Like Squirrel Hill is a pretty lovely neighborhood, but it's somewhat of a little far away. Sometimes, as the name suggests, it's a hill. So it's like up and down, and during winter, sometimes if you're not used to all of that, you might have to walk a little bit to get to the nearest bus stop. So that is the only disadvantage with Squirrel Hill, but I would put it as, North Oakland, Shady Side, Central Oakland, and South Oakland, and then Squirrel Hill. Like, Squirrel Hill and South Oakland on the same level. Like South Oakland, the only problem with South Oakland I've experienced with a lot of folks is that not a lot of buses go after the bridge closure. So you're only left with shuttles, and the shuttles don't run sometimes on the weekends, and their timings are pretty varied. So you have to work around that, or otherwise the only option is to walk or cycle. So that is why I would suggest you look at housing in the North Oakland area, preferably, If not, then Shady Side is pretty good, and Squirrel Hill is also pretty good. And then, of course, Central Oakland is like the one of the best because you are right next door, technically on campus, if you could call it that.
Thank you. And I know Sarah mentioned the buses, and so did Raj. Included in your tuition, you get you ride the bus for free. So your student ID will get you on the bus. It'll get you on the incline. It'll get you on the trolley system, which goes all across town. So and there's also scooters that students can like rent across town. They're not university sponsored, so definitely be careful on those. But that is another way students get around Oakland and the area.
And I just like to add one thing for that, Lydia, that yeah, your student ID gives you access to buses, the trains, and inclines. But yeah, as you said, scooters are not university sponsored, but there are bikes. So Pogo bike system is a bike system across the university, which is sponsored and which is free for students for the first 30 minutes of each ride each time you take a bike. So that is pretty useful. Like I never experienced having any issues of like buying a bike or using a bike because all of that was university sponsored. So I never had to buy a bike. Of course, now after graduating, I want to buy a bike. So I did go ahead and buy a bike. But apart from that, across your student life, it's pretty amazing about how the network is designed, and you can look it up on the app, and your code will be sent to you through the university as soon as you start your term. So I think that's a pretty good thing, which not a lot of people know about, but you should make use of it.
Thank you, Raj. There's a question I see getting a lot of attention in the chat, and it is, what's a reasonable price for a PhD student to pay with their stipend? And I will say it depends on your stipend. Different programs have different stipends, so we probably can't answer that fully, but I don't know if any of the panelists have some sort of range that they see graduate students paying.
I can answer that question. I think the basic rent for an affordable apartment in Oakland is probably like $800 to $900 a month at this point or up for a single, like a studio or a 1-bedroom. If you need to save money, your best bet is to hopefully find a roommate to save money. But the average cost, unfortunately, in the Oakland area or the surroundings area, because of all the colleges in one area, rent is a little bit higher.
Thank you, Tricia. And I think that's why we're trying to encourage students to maybe go a little bit further away from Oakland. Like I said, the bus system is included in your tuition. It's not an extra fee. So if you have to go a little bit further, that's okay. And we do have students that live a little bit on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, which is a little bit cheaper. You just have to do some research about the area that you're looking to move to. I know a few students will live in Forest Hills or Penn Hills, Wilkinsburg and things like that. So those are a little bit further outside of Oakland, but they run on a bus line, and so it's pretty quick to get to campus too. So just research the area you're looking for. And like I said, we'll try to get to all the questions in the group. Y'all are asking some really good questions, and some of our panelists will respond to you individually as well if you're mentioning them specifically. So I'm going to go on to the next question. And while we're talking about cost, I want to ask Mike and Tricia, what are some of the costs students endure that they are typically unprepared for? I know there's a lot of costs that students might not think of, especially if they're new to the area or new to the United States. What are some of the costs that students might miss?
Cable, internet, water, sewage, gas, electric. A lot of people don't think about their monthly meals, what they're going to eat. Are they going to buy? Are they going to bring their lunch? Are they going to get a commuter meal plan? That's just some of the costs they have to think about. In the winter, keeping your heating on a temperature, if you're coming from a warmer climate, and it's going to be cold in Pittsburgh during the winter. Not turning your heat up to 80 and all of a sudden getting $1,000 gas bill. In the summer, not keeping your air conditioning running all the time, because utilities can get very high and sometimes they can be very shocking.
Another thing I would add to that is parking. If you're bringing if you feel like you have to bring a vehicle to campus, it's going to be costly to find parking close to Oakland, or depending on if your apartment complex has parking with it.
Yeah, so when you're considering your rent, also consider some of the other costs that come with that. So when you move in, there might be youth like you might have a fee to move in, as they suggested. So it might be like $100 just to have an application fee. You might also have to put down a security deposit. A lot of students don't think about that. And does anybody want to explain what a security deposit is for someone who might not know?
I can take that. A
Thank you.
security deposit is when you move into an apartment. A security deposit basically it's protecting the landlord if you do any damages to the apartment, or if you have unpaid fees or unpaid utilities. That is sort of a backup for the landlord if you leave any damage in their apartment unit.
And someone questioned if rent included utilities. Can someone answer that?
I can answer that. It's very far and few between that you can find all utilities included. But Mike, for university-owned apartments, he can tell you about the utilities in their apartments.
Yeah, most of our options include all the utilities. It just depends per different properties. Some of them include utilities, internet, and cable. We do have one building that includes all utilities but electric. So that's just something to watch out for when you're renting an apartment. You know, if you see something that's 800 or 900, but it doesn't include anything, it's obviously going to be a lot more than that. When you factor in all the utilities, you're definitely going to need internet. If you need parking. So, you know, sometimes people look for the lowest price they can find on the rent part of it, but you have to make sure that you look into what the costs are going to be for everything and what's included in that rent price.
Mike, while you're speaking, can you talk a little bit about if there's any university housing left? I know students grab that up pretty quickly, but I did see a comment in the chat about it.
Yeah, we do have some options left. They are starting to get limited. You likely, you know, we have a couple left for 1 bedroom and studio, but they're September starts. For August starts, you would have to have roommates. I mean, there are students that take, you know, a 2-bedroom for themselves and things like that. But for the most part, at this point, you would have to either find a roommate and go in with them, or if you definitely know a property that you want and we have an opening there, we can sometimes introduce you through email to other students that would be interested, to see if you feel like those would be a good fit. We don't exactly roommate match for off-campus apartments because we want you to, you know, you're signing a document with someone to live there with them for the next 11 to 12 months. So you want to have someone that you feel comfortable with. We don't want to place anyone with you, but you know, we can introduce you through email to another student. But you can post on the OCL website. There's a finding a roommate page where you can look for people that already posted there, and you can look and post for yourself. And then the unofficial, you know, Pitt Reddit, Pitt Facebook pages are other good places to post if you're looking for roommates.
And how can they if they're looking for on-campus housing, who should they contact for that? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. So on-campus housing, off-campus housing, you would contact me or go through the OCL for university owned. On-campus housing, if you're an undergrad, you would contact Panther Central to get onto their list there.
Thank you. And I think most folks on here are grad. Okay, we're gonna hop into the next question, unless anybody else has anything to add about some costs. I don't know if Raj or Sarah has anything to add there.
I've been kind of distracted, so I wasn't 100% sure if this was mentioned, but also just make sure that you're also taking into account like washing the washing machine or anything like that in regards to your stay. Some apartments don't. They'll have like a washing machine for like the whole building. I haven't really personally seen a lot of like, especially near the school where you get like your own personal. I mean, someone can correct me if you're wrong, but a lot of the times I found that like my friends do share, or you can like go down to the laundromat, like down there's a bunch, but that's another like added cost that typically you'll have to either pay for with like coins or anything like that. So that was another cost that I had not thought about before I came to Pittsburgh. So I just wanted people to be aware of that as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can just add to what Sarah said, a lot of the housing, like recently last year, I discovered mostly I was under the impression that mostly all the housing, either in Oakland, Shady Side, Squirrel, on campus, off campus, all of them have laundry systems, at your disposal. But I found out that like a couple of friends actually reached out to me and a couple of my juniors, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have any laundry machines inside our apartment, and we have to go like maybe let's say a block or two down the road to our nearest laundromat." And I'm like, okay, that's pretty new. So I was under the impression that everyone has it, but this is something which you should actually look at. Does your apartment have it or not in the first place? And also, if you have a chance to go and see the apartment, or if there's like a video or something, ask the landlord what's the cost, and is it how many people is it shared between? Because a lot of times if it's just multiple machines within like a huge apartment complex, then you're always waiting in queue. But if it's like less machines, so I would say I have my apartment, like mine is a house per se, so we have like I guess 15 people, and then there are 2 machines, so it's pretty good ratio if you could consider that. The other thing to keep in mind is, as Trisha said, all the utilities. It's very hard to find any apartment with utilities included. Like my last year's apartment had everything included, but that apartment did not have air conditioning. So that was the scenario why electricity was included in the cost. And also, if you have air conditioning in your apartment and your heating and everything, just check if it's on gas or electric, because like gas heating tends to be cheaper than electric heating. Like my current home has electric heating, and that's newer technology. Your easier comfort zone, you just set the temperature and it goes to that, but that will add up to cost during the winters. And I've seen utility bills just skyrocket. And even though I knew, and I spoke with the utility company, and that's how we maintained that, but you could see the difference between the times when it was not cold and when it was cold. It was literally double. So if you have something like that, just check if at least if the heating is included in the rent. If there is a gas heating, there are chances that it will be included in the rent. If that's the case, then that would be the best bet for you. Most of the times electricity is not included, but at least gas, most of the apartments older ones have it included. So if that's included, you are saving up on a lot of cost. Other than that, of course, Wi-Fi will be a fixed cost for most students, depends on what plan you want, but that will be a fixed cost. And generally, some apartments do not have trash, water, sewage, everything is extra, but most apartments do have it included. So keep in mind to at least have all of those included. Like I would suggest that except for electricity, keep it as such that except for electricity, everything else should be included. And if not, then you could lower out on what you want. Like gas is not included, something like that. So start with that, talk to the landlords about that. Or maybe some landlords have like a fixed every monthly bill, and they include everything. That's an additional cost over the rent. Let's say $100 or $150, and everything else will be included. So at least for the winter, it's easier for you because your cost will anyways go above that. So yeah.
Yeah, and like I said before, we can't tell you exact costs of like utilities. It really just depends on how much you use things. But setting aside an extra $150 to $200 for utilities is definitely suggested. So if you're looking at rent at $900, consider the other costs that you're gonna take on. So around $150 to $200 for utilities. So yeah, keep all that in mind. Also, if you are bringing a pet, that is likely going to be a cost as well. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. So a lot of the students online today are international students. And so we want to answer a few questions for them. So, or for any student who's out of town. So this question is for Trisha and Raj. So if students can't visit an apartment before they commit to that apartment, what questions should they ask property managers?
The first thing I would suggest, if you're renting an apartment, you need to, and you're viewing the apartment, any reputable landlord will do a video tour for you. And you need to ask them if that's the exact apartment you will be doing. It's very important to somehow see pictures or get a video tour. If the landlord's unwilling to do that, to rent their units, I don't know if I would rent from them.
Raj, what about you?
Yeah, I
Thank you,
mean,
Trisha.
yeah, most of the landlords have either pictures or video too. Sometimes, when it's, when there are like people staying in the apartment, and that is the apartment which they have to give to you, sometimes it's not easier for them to, share a video, and they will share pictures. But of course, you can like talk to them and request them for a video. Mostly, all the landlords will actually send you a video or at least pictures of how exactly the apartment looks. And only then you should decide, okay, this is good, this is bad. Or maybe if you have some friends, who are there, they can have a look at the apartment before you land in, or some other people who can do that for you. In my case, I had family here, so they came in before I actually landed in the US, and they looked at it. But this year particularly, I was on ground. So I mean, if it's always a benefit to be on ground, because you can actually go and talk to the landlords in person, visit the properties in person, look at the area around the property, and you can figure out, okay, if this is like nearby to the nearest bus stop or not. Because a lot of the times Pittsburgh is a very hilly city, so you might think that this is pretty nearby, but it might be uphill, and then it be a problem. So there are times if you are in those areas, you should actually factor in that as well, because a lot of people who come from outside cities or even outside the country might not be used to the Pittsburgh Hills and all of that. So I mean, now we take it for granted, but once you come in here for the first time, all of this should, will be like an issue for you, and you don't want to face that, especially during the winters when everything is actually bad outside.
By bad, he means like snow.
Or ice.
Snow, rain, ice, things like that. Pittsburgh, you'll get a lot of different, you'll get all the ranges of weather. Thank you, Trisha and Raj. I appreciate that. And before we end, I'll show you guys what the online resource looks like that we're mentioning to you, because it has so many resources that a lot of you are asking about in the chat. So I'll definitely show you all that before we finish today.
Lydia, before we move on to the next question, can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
One thing I would ask your landlord is how, like, the system that they take payment for your rent as well. Also, like, if you have roommates, how they accept that payment, especially if you are an international student, like your bank accounts, things like that. Sometimes, again, they do ask for like proof of knowing how much, like proof of having that money and things like that. But yeah, just making sure you know how to contact them through either the like their portal they might have, or an email, and then also like maintenance requests, when you can expect like them to come and do maintenance, their rules and of like them coming onto your property. Just make sure you know your rights as a tenant as well. And I know like Trisha said this in the beginning, but just making sure you do read your contract very thoroughly before you like sign anything is most important, I would say.
Can I add something to that, please? Just remember, when you're signing a lease, it's a legal binding contract. If you don't like that apartment, make sure you're 100% positive before you sign any lease. Because I see so many students coming in, I want out of this lease, I can't stand the apartment. Or if you sign with roommates, remember, it's jointly and severally. That means that you're treated as one, even though you have like 2 roommates and your other 2 roommates aren't paying the rent, but you are, you're still responsible for the rent, believe it or not. The landlords just wants that lump sum. So be careful with that and read your lease. And once you sign a lease, you are basically stuck for that lease for that year contract, unless the landlord will let you out of the lease. And usually that entails very high costs.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat. Y'all are going quick.
Yeah,
What is
I
it?
can also add to this one point. Like, yeah, I also skipped all of this, but yeah, this is actually pretty important. And it's not just you, but maybe make sure that your parents or someone elder who knows about all these contracts and everything also has a look at it. And a lot of the times, the contracts, of course, are made in such a way that it will feel that if you do this, you're liable for this and something like that. But don't get disheartened. Like, don't be scared of it. It's just designed to give both the landlord and the tenant, mostly the landlord, some leverage. But other than that, if you just have to look at it and make sure you follow the rules. Of course, as Sarah said, the maintenance is also a big thing. Like, I've been lucky enough to get good landlords where the maintenance is pretty good. But check with them how the maintenance is. And yeah, especially for international students, when before you arrive here, if they want some money, how is it that they want you to transfer? I would prefer them always to take bank transfers or something like that, because e-check or Venmo, something will not be working before you come to the US. I mean, they could take that as like a future once you land in here, like a second month's rent and so on. But ask them to take bank payment method like wire transfer or something like that. Or maybe if they can wait, some landlords are pretty good and they can wait until you actually arrive here for the first month's rent and all of that. So talk to them, discuss with them all the options before you come in. And even after you do, what are the options? Do they take credit card, debit card, or do they take e-checks or something like that? And when is when do they want it from? Which, like, some people have like the first 5 days, some people have the first 10 days, some people want it on the first itself. So it depends on how you would do it. And I think the most important thing before you land in here would be to open a bank account, because all of these things would be linked to that. So you come in here and open a bank account, maybe 2 of your choice at locations, banks available here in Pittsburgh near the university. And that is when you can use your debit card and all of that to pay for the rent and everything. So talk to that with the landlord, and make them understand that you are an international student, and a lot of these systems don't work. So what are the other options which they could do? So sit down with them, discuss them, and I think most of them are pretty good enough to understand, and they have been used to international students, so they should know the method. But just in case, talk to them.
Thank
I
you all.
have something.
Go ahead.
I'm going off topic, but we were mentioning expenses before. It's very difficult to find furnished apartments any longer. And just remember, furnishing your unit with a desk, a bed, pots, pans, knives, spoons is another added expense if you really don't know anyone in the university area.
Very true. Well, thank you all for giving us some of those things to ask when before getting here. That's super important. I see a lot of folks in the chat asking when they should sign the agreement. Would either Trisha or Mike want to take that one?
I think as soon as you can. If you want to wait and come to the States or from another or from anywhere across the US or Canada or wherever you're coming from, I suggest run as soon as you can because the market is very, very volatile and things fill up fast. I would suggest, but if you come wait till August till you're going to start classes, you can find something, but at that point you're going to be a little farther out. You're going to pay a little more money because the limited stuff is filling up. The least cost stuff is filling up now.
Thank you. All right, we have one more question, and then I'm going to show you all the website that we've been talking about repeatedly. And then I'm going to give you like one housing options that a lot of our international students use, and then we'll open it up for you all to have questions. So Mike and Sarah, this question is for you. What is the number one piece of advice you can give to students when searching for a place to live off campus?
I would just say, unless it's a known reputable company that make sure that whatever place you're renting from has good reviews attached to it. You don't want to rent a place that has no reviews at all, that you're Googling the address, the owner's name, and you're not finding anything. You want to find something that has some good reviews attached to it, or if for some reason you can't find anything, ask the landlord to speak to the current tenants about the place that you're going to be renting. So that would be my top advice.
Yeah, mine would kind of be very similar to Mike's, would just be if you get a good feeling from the land, like I think it's really important you'll have a relationship for at least a year with this landlord. So making sure that they do answer your questions that you have even before you move in, and you just get a good feel for them is really important, because then that can build the relationship throughout the year. But also I do think, like what Trisha was saying, is the market can be kind of just all over the place. So I think now is a good time, if you are coming in August, to like look. And if anyone does have any like further questions, I'll put my email and stuff in the chat if you have anything, because I again, like I said, my first year I showed up, I didn't even see the place. I just like took the video that the landlord sent me, and it worked out for me, but I haven't had a lot of stuff. But if anyone has any like further questions about like housing in general, or just coming to the States or anything while you get here, I can definitely be a resource. So I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Thank you all so much. So I'm gonna share my screen with you all briefly, just so I can show you this website that we've been talking about nonstop. So just give me 1 second. So I'll show you the College Pads website. All right, everyone. Okay, so this is the site. Sorry, you all in the way. And we've been talking about this a lot. So you can go to an apartment search and kind of search some of the university apartments, or you can view all these things on the left here. You can explore Pittsburgh. The College Pad site is what we've been mentioning a decent amount. They have the roommate portal here. I'll click on that, see if I'm already signed in, which I am. Great. So as you can see here, it lists out some folks that are looking for roommates. It mentions like the rent that they're looking for. And so you can make your own postings here. Since we shared this before, it shows like a lot of graduate students are recently added on here, which is a great thing. At the top, you can look for listings here. Scroll down, you can pick the area you wanna see, and then it'll give you some of the listings here. There's some renter education, just teach you a little bit about how to be a good renter and a good neighbor. This is what I was mentioning earlier in the chat. It's coming soon. It's not posted yet, but you'll be able to find all these things and especially furniture that you can kind of buy or sell. So I think it's a great resource for you to use. We've shared that link, but I'll share it one more time in the chat. And then I also want to show you, I'll share my screen again. It's called the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. One second. Can you all see my screen? Can I get a thumbs up? Thank you. So it's the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. And basically what that is it's a graduate theological school through the Presbyterian Church. So I know you're thinking like church, Pitt, and they don't really align, but they offer housing to non-theological seminary students, including a large percentage of students from Pitt and other local universities. And we've spoken to them a few times because a lot of our international students use this service. Your students are not required to have any religious affiliation to reside in this housing. So if you're not affiliated with a church or anything like that, you don't have to be. That's okay. It's just housing. And so they offer housing in these three units: Kalian Hall, Fulton Apartments, and Stanton Highland Apartments, which is newly renovated. And they offer efficiency, which is something like pretty small and the most affordable, I would say. Single spaces, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom spaces. Single spaces are limited, I will say that. So if you're interested, definitely check them out pretty soon. And then the apartment sizes vary per building. So I know Kalian Hall is like single to dorm style housing. So here's a short video. I don't know if it'll play on here. Can you all hear?
I can't, but
You don't really
I
need to
can't
hear.
either.
All right, I won't show you the whole video. I'm going to share this little PowerPoint in this comments, so you can feel free to download that, save it to your computer, so you can have access to it. And then I'll also share it when I share out the recording of this video. Okay. But that's just a video of one of their spaces, and then their application process is pretty simple. You download it and complete their application on their website, which I'll share on the next slide. You email their email right here with the application. You can also mail it in, but I think email is pretty quick. Then you pay their commitment fee, and then you can contact them at this email for any questions that you have. And then here's their contact information if you want to write it down now, if you prefer not to download this file. But this is how you get in contact with them. And here are the videos that I showed you. And then here's their application. So like I said, it's not university affiliated, but they said about 60% of their students are not part of the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary and are actually from students from Pitt, Duquesne, CMU, and schools like that in the area. So that's just one resource. And I know some students use like apartments.com or I can't think of any other ones right now.
Zillow,
Yeah, Zillow, things like that.
Bumper.
Thank you. And I'll include some of those when I send the follow-up email with you all. But we're going to try to go through some of the questions in the chat that we haven't answered. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the next 5 minutes. But you all have asked some great questions. I'm going to encourage the panelists to include their emails or their office's email in the chat so that students can contact them if need be. And I'll include mine as well, but you'll get a follow-up email from me in the next day with this video link and some of the resources that we talked about today. So let's see. If someone has a question, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask your question that way as well.
One thing I saw, Lydia, was if there was interim stays, like if they don't have a place yet until they get to Pittsburgh, is there anything that the university might provide or anything maybe someone else might have to, because I don't know if there's
That's a
anything.
good question. And I don't know if Mike knows that or maybe Trisha.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, short-term stays are really difficult. We don't have extra housing for that, and the landlords in the area aren't going to rent for like 3 months or 1 month because they're going to sell out all their apartments for 12-month leases. So that's why it's just not ideal to arrive and then look for an apartment. I mean, you would have to rent a hotel room or a Airbnb, and that's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you could look for subleasing, but it's mostly available during off semester timings. Like right now, if you want, there'll be a lot more houses available for subleasing. But if you decide to come in August and then start looking for subleasing, most of them will not be available because students will be staying in those apartments. And only then maybe the next period would be December. Like some people graduate and then they are looking for someone to sublease their apartment for the next 6 months until the lease ends. So something like that could open up, but yeah, short term is always a problem. Like a lot of the times, even I get asked, I don't know what to say to them, but it's always difficult because it depends on your luck at that point. If some apartment is empty, you can go for it, but if it's not, then you're just left with, as what Mike said, hotel rooms and Airbnbs, which is definitely a very expensive option as compared to renting houses or something like that.
And the off-campus living page does share some subleases that they have. Typically, those are students who are subleasing their apartments for summer, things like that, or maybe a graduating student who subleased through September, but they no longer need to be here. So definitely check out that page again.
Yeah.
We have a question about sorry, where did it go? Accessible housing and if there was a cost for that. Does anybody have a specific answer for that? Like wheelchair accessible housing?
I would say you first probably want to start by contacting the Disability Resources Office and seeing what assistance they can provide you. We have a couple at university owned, but yeah, I would start with checking with Disability Resource, seeing how they can help.
And we can share the link for that. I'll share that in 1 minute. And I saw a hand, but I think it went away. So if you did have a question, feel free to pop back in with your hands. So I had a question. Oh, we'll let Ben go. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, quick question. For those who are able to do this, do you recommend driving around Pittsburgh and looking for numbers on signs, or do you think most eligible, worthwhile places are going to be online?
Yeah, I would search online. Those signs that you see that are around the neighborhoods are up year round. So even if they're sold out, their signs are going to be up. So it's probably, I mean, you can always come for tours, but I would search the options first online and go that route.
Yeah, we mentioned some of those sites, apartments.com and Zillow are the huge ones that a lot of students use. Like I said, I'll drop those links in the email I sent. You just have to be careful, make sure that they're not scams, because we don't want anybody on here to get scammed. And their scams are pretty obvious to tell typically, but we definitely don't just randomly send people money because not everybody is a legit. So look for those. I think Trisha said it before, look for those reviews because people will review them. Iman, is that how you say your name? Amen?
Yeah, that's correct, Iman.
Okay.
My question was for the off-campus housing that is available through Pitt, the one Mike mentioned. Do I have to move in with a roommate that is a Pitt student? And what is the price range for a 2-bedroom apartment?
You don't necessarily have to move in with a Pitt student, but if you have a roommate that's not a Pitt student, they're listed as an occupant and they don't actually sign the lease. So we just always advise it's better to go with a Pitt student that you're signing a joint lease with, because then, they could be held to be paying their part. If you just have an occupant, you're kind of responsible for the rent. They can still pay their half, but they could leave the lease without any kind of penalty because they're not signing the lease. They're just your occupant. So if it's someone you trust that you're close friends with, then that might be a good option. But if not, I wouldn't advise, at least for our university owned apartments, it's different. If you're going down, a route that's non-university owned, then they're not looking for just Pitt students. You can sign co-lease with that person. The price range overall, it's, a 2-bedroom could be anywhere between 1,400 and 2,500, but a lot of the lower options have been taken already. I've put my email in the chat. I can put it in again. If you want the list of what's available, I can send it to you personally. Just send me an email and then I'll email you back with what we still have available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I'm just going to ask us one last question. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions in the chat. You all asked some really good questions. And like we said, we'll include a lot of this in our email. But could someone ask, I think it was Merrick, as an international student, I don't have a credit score, rental history, or social security number yet. Many landlords are asking application fee and a credit score. What could work for this? And do we need a warrantor? Does anybody have an answer for that?
Yeah, I mean, this
I
is,
can take some of that too.
yeah, I think Risha, you can go and then maybe I could just add what you said.
Okay, sometimes when you don't have a credit score, you can show them proof of your financial assistance, what you're coming in the country with. I think it's on your I-9 or your visa, what you're coming into the country with. Sometimes when you provide a higher security deposit, like pay a little more of a security deposit or pay some rent in advance, they will rent to you. See if you have any family here or anyone that could possibly be a guarantor. You can always ask for reference letters from the school to see how much money you're coming in with. So sometimes that'll suffice. Other than that, you're gonna need to find a cosigner. Raj, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would just mostly, you said, I would just like to add is that, for international students, you have your I-20, which does show how much you're paying in fees and all of that. So, I mean, that could be a document which you can show the landlord that, oh, this is what I'm paying. So, and most landlords know about this. So it's not even like new to them. So most landlords who have dealt with international students, they know that, they will check your I-20, and because you don't have your SSN or a credit score or something like that, they will check that and they should be like, okay, this looks good. So, and they will of course ask you for a security deposit, and some also ask you for like a first month's rent together. So I think along with, after once you sign the lease of the application fee. So I mean, all of these will serve as a good document, even if you don't have like a guarantor or something like that. You can talk to them like, I'm new, I don't have anyone, but this is my I-20, and that does show your financial assistance as what Risha mentioned. So I think that should be enough, and most landlords are pretty good and they understand all of that. So they should be good to go ahead with that.
All right, y'all, we're out of time. We're a little bit over. I just want to say thank you to Mike, Raj, Trisha, and Sarah for your time and for answering some of the great questions that our participants asked. Like I said to the participants, we'll send you a list of some resources. We'll try to include some emails from some of the folks here if you have questions for them that didn't get answered. And I hope y'all have a good day, and I hope this was helpful to a lot of you. So I'll stay on for a minute, just so people can read the chat if you want to catch up. But I just want to say thank you to you all. I appreciate it, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.